You are a leader with divine authority. What does that mean?
It means I'm a leader. Are you having trouble with leader, divine, or authority? There's a lot of people that have been trying to get some dirt on me. This might be your chance to get some of the real thing.
We've never said you have to starve yourselves to death.
That's right.
We said you may starve to death.
Oh, allow me, please.
Violent punishment is taking place inside.
Hello, sir, officer. That's my son. And the Jesus Christians brainwash him, sir.
Didn't they say that you can brainwash people within hours?
Yeah, I wish I could. I mean, that'd be great.
I was just kind of feeling a bit depressed and feeling like, almost like regretting, like having given the kidney.
How many followers have donated a kidney?
Yeah, I have lost count. I was trying through some Machiavellian plot to control the media. I'm prepared to go ahead with the documentary, but only on one condition, and that's that you use this video.
We'll just try and do what you want us to do.
It was your poison chalice, and you drank it with gusto.
We'll just leave it to you to decide our fate.
Today, I want to talk about a cult, okay? And not just any cult, a kidney cult. And I mean that literally.
I think we'll be the kidney cult for sure, you know, that we're chopping people up and selling them for spare parts.
And then that's not even like the worst thing that they're accused of. So you already know it's bad. And then I'm wearing this, so it's weird. It's a lot. This cult has been around actually since the 80s, and the latest craziest scandal that happened in 2023. So there's a lot to go over. The cult leader or group leader, allegedly it's a cult, it could be just a group, a religious group of people. That person, his name is David McKay, but he goes by Dave. I'm going to be referring to him as Dave. So Dave actually was in another cult before he left that cult to start his own cult, which is officially called the Jesus Christians, by the way, but they're unofficially known as the kidney cult. But before he left to create the Jesus Christians, he was in the Children of God cult. And that cult, if you've ever heard of it, is awful. Dave McKay, he's actually from New York, although his cult is based mainly in Australia, although they have groups in New York and Kenya and India and the UK. Dave grew up in a Christian family. Specifically, they were Nazarene Christians. And then he got married pretty young. That's when he moved to Australia. His wife, her name is officially Sherry, but she goes by Cherry. So he married his wife Cherry and moved to Australia. And this was in the late 60s-ish. Dave was in Australia when he met someone who was promoting the Children of God, and he said he liked what they had to say. So what do the Children of God believe in? Well, they believe in a lot of things, but what they were known for the most and what made them so hated by everyone, really, they had this thing called flirty fishing, where they would send the little girls to go and like seduce men and recruit them. And then within the group, the leader was like straight up sleeping with the little kids. It was awful, and it was like a big part of what was done and justified, and there's like all this literature from like the shit he used to do. It's very, very bad. According to Dave, when his affiliation was later found out that he had something to do with Children of God, he said that, you know, he did like some of what they had to say, but when he found out about the flirty fishing and all the inappropriate stuff with kids, that's when he decided to leave and start his own group. By 1981, he has his own group. So in 1985, he basically decides to do this like publicity stunt, I guess you could call it.
We're throwing away $201 notes in less than 10 minutes time. You can keep as many notes as you can catch.
Where he goes out and like burns money, and then he has like his followers are taping lots like Australian dollars, like 100,000 worth of Australian dollars allegedly, all over sidewalks and stuff, like putting messages about greed and how money is bad and everything.
We'd save up until we had a few $100s and then make paper airplanes out of them or something and throw them away. And people in Sydney have heard, and because they've heard, they're now responsible. If they go to hell, that's their fault, not ours.
This is also when his group starts its first of many brushes with the law. And one of the members apparently burning this Australian dollar was illegal, or it was done illegally. In any case, one of his members went to jail for that. And that started this sort of like adversarial relationship that he had with the law, and like trying to preach like the fact that greed is bad and Jesus is good and he knows the way, and burn the money and all this, because that's the other thing. Because like, what does he believe in? Why does he have a group? Let me tell you. Dave McKay preaches that you should renounce all of your worldly materials, and not just that, but even the connections with family.
There's a very controversial verse in the 14th chapter of Luke where Jesus says that we need to hate our parents.
Friends, your job. You shouldn't work for money. You should work for God. That's one thing he says. So he is basically like, we don't believe in money, so we're not going to work. We're just going to spread the gospel. If you give us donations, that would be great.
Right, if you can spare a few pennies to help with the printing, that would be really great.
If not, we're going to dumpster dive. No big deal.
People like these strawberries. Want to take those? There's a lot of potatoes as well. Potatoes are always handy.
It always tastes better when it's free.
And they live in like this white van. There's always reference throughout all the decades of like this white van, and like when they would recruit members, and some of them were minors, they were like swept away in a white van, and it was just like, ew. You live in the van, you eat from the dumpster, you love Jesus, and guess what? Also, he really doesn't want you to get married. He's married, but he doesn't want you to get married. But if you have to get married, he doesn't want you to have kids. He has 4 kids, but he doesn't want you to have kids because it just gets in the way of like you and Jesus. So he's a really big advocate though for what he calls wanking. I found this like archive thing of his of what post on his website, and like the tab said wanking, the last taboo. So he's pro wanking. You could call him a wanker, literally, which is fine, whatever. But he what was it, promoted it as a way to like, hey, I know you need to do something, but like, I don't want you to get married, so why don't you wank? If you do get married, like, I don't want you to have kids, wank. He wanted to create a virgin army for Jesus. Those are like the main beliefs. There's more. I'm like, that's all he believes in, wanking and dumpster diving. This video is sponsored by Upside. Upside is an app that gives you cash back, not points or credits or rewards, but real cash back on purchases that you make. And it actually gives you 3 times more cash back than any other product. Top Upside earners actually make up to $300 a month. You basically go on the app. They have different percent backs on the cash backs. Like for example, they have, ooh, ambulance. Oh God, I hope they're okay. They have, by the way, over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants. And then you claim it, and it'll tell you in the fine print how much time you have left to actually claim it. You'll get your cash back in about 2 to 4 days. Eventually, they said they're going to be doing it instant, but right now it takes about 2 to 4 days. And there, you have cash back. There's certain things that I'm discovering that I wouldn't have discovered, like restaurants and grocery stores, because I like the percentage of the thing and it's nearby. And it exposes me to like new places to try out, and then I'm getting cash back. So it feels like low risk to try something new. So to find out how much you can earn, click the link in the description to download the Upside app, and then you can use my code Noor, N-O-O-R, which will get you an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. Or you could scan the QR code that I will have on the screen for you to scan. So check it out. I really like it. I hope you will too. Thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, thank you to Upside for supporting my channel. Okay, back to the video. Another publicity thing that he did was this thing called the Nullarbor. Nullarbor. It's reminding me of like when the Australian R&R. He had his youngest followers wearing nothing but these like t-shirts with these slogans on them of what they believe, basically cross the desert with no provisions, no water or like change of clothes or food. Dave had a 15-year-old girl who was like leading this walk of faith, And he had her contact the media to basically say, like, we're going to walk through this desert. I think it's like 1,000 miles with nothing. And this is our walk of faith. And so it got attention. People are like, what? The kids are going to cross the desert with nothing. But the point that Dave was trying to make is that God will provide. And he was like, see, it worked. God did provide. People came and started giving these children water and food. And so it's a miracle from God. You basically like endangered the children in front of the media, and then people came to help them. A few years later in 1990, Dave decides that he's going to send some followers to the States, and they're going to basically sell these books and pamphlets and things that he wrote, comic books, leaflets, whatever, his beliefs. He basically said the world was going to end because Russia was going to nuke the United States. He based this on the book of Revelation, saying that in Revelations there's this talk about like a beast and a whore, and that like Russia's the beast and America's the whore. And that, let me read you the quote. Okay, it says here, Revelation talks about a beast and a whore. Henry said, we believe Russia is the beast and America is the great whore of Babylon. The Christians' beliefs call for the beast to destroy the whore, which will be through a surprise nuclear attack. There will then be only 7 years before the start of Christ's 1,000-year reign on earth, but not before humans resort to animal sacrifice and a great meteor kills 1 billion people. I asked what kind of reaction they had been getting. It depends. He said some people listen, some people say go back to Australia, some are annoyed that we have the flag upside down. One guy tried to run us down. So that happened in the States, and they still were able to get some followers there. But then something happened. Dave decides to do this other thing in Australia, and this was like they were called the nappy chappies. They basically wore adult diapers and like some sort of public spectacle talking about how like God wants you to be a child in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. This is when, because they'd been getting attention and everything, the whole children of God thing and some of the stuff he wrote was talking about that. And the connection started to be made between Dave McKay, the Jesus Christians, and his origins with the children of God. And at the time, like things were coming out very bad about the children of God. And this sort of began where there was like a more sinister thing where people were like, what exactly is he doing? This is also when there was sort of some members that left and they said that they did not believe in what he was teaching, that he was a hypocrite. They said, quote, the spirit you are following is not Christ. We will have no part of your hierarchies and fleshly importance. But then the shit really hit the fan after that. That is when the group cult was accused of kidnapping a 16-year-old boy called Bobby. Bobby Kelly was his name. And this is the story. This happened in the UK. Again, right, they're out in public talking about these books that Dave wrote, comic books, leaflets, whatever. There happens to be this 16-year-old kid who stops and talks to them and likes what they have to say. They were also accused at the time of making like their literature like comic books to attract kids specifically. Now, the crazy thing is, a year before this, there was another instance also in the UK, but this time he wasn't a minor, he was 19 and he was a college student, and he also met these people in public with the books and stuff, like what they had to say. But he was like a mechanical engineering student. He dropped out, he got rid of all his stuff, and he decided he wanted to forsake everything for Christ. He like took stuff out of the house, told his mom like he's just basically dropping out of like society to go join them. And this mom, she tried to stop him, and it got to the point where like she reported him missing and said he was kidnapped, but he was 19, remember? So he actually showed up to the police station and told the mom with the cult members, like, I'm not missing, like, I'm 19, I want to be with them. And so the mom apparently tried to stop him. By the way, this kid, his name is Kyrie Sheridan. She tried to stop him, and the police ended up taking her and arresting her and like handcuffing her because she was trying to restrict an adult from moving freely, essentially. And he just like went away, disappeared. She never heard of him. So that had already happened in the UK. Then a year later is when the 16-year-old I told you about, Bobby Kelly, went missing. The reason why I'm telling you this is because There was already like talks and stories about this guy and his group and what was happening in Australia, and this kid who was 19. Okay, he's a teenager, but he was an adult, and now it's a minor, and it was treated very differently. Immediately, the grandmother went and was like, my son is missing, or my grandson is missing, acting different. His eyes are glazed over. He sounds like scared. He's like talking about, I need to go. He's like zombie like. Both parents said separately a year apart that their kid was zombie like, and they all want material things to sell and take to help them. This is when it started coming out that like this group, they don't work.
When a person joins the Jesus Christians, whatever money they have, they put into a common fund within the Jesus Christians. Because it's an organization where nobody works in a job.
What they do is they try to recruit these young, impressionable kids essentially and try to get them to take whatever materials and things that they have for the benefit of the group since they don't work. And so the grandma said this, she said, quote, "They took his TV and video and wanted me to take other things belonging to Bobby from my flat, but I banned them. They wanted his bank book, not that there's anything in it, and they were trying to get him a passport to take him abroad. They would not let they would not let him speak to me on his own. I tried, but he said he had to have one of the group with him at all the time." Now, an important thing to mention is that there are two members, they're a married couple, and that is Ronald and Susan or Susie Gia Stefani, and they are longtime members of the Jesus Christians, and they're out there recruiting, and they're going to factor into the story a lot. They were the ones who recruited the first kid I told you about, Kyrie. They're also the ones who recruited Bobby. And also, whenever the grandma would try to talk to Bobby on the phone after he was like missing, he would still contact his grandma, but he just would not reveal where he was. And he was just like, listen, I had to do this. And she would always hear someone in the background, and she would hear about someone called Susie who was basically telling him what to say. And everything was always like the group decided what would happen. The group, like she could never get to him alone and actually like talk to him and see what he wanted. This is when everyone started saying, oh my God, like this is a cult. And then they were like, he was last seen when he was missing. They're like, he was last seen entering a white van. Again, that same like van. And so this ends up being a huge story at the time in the UK. While Bobby was missing, he actually spoke to the BBC. He did this interview with them, and he said, quote, he said, "I know exactly what I'm doing and exactly who I've joined. I'm staying with the group, hopefully for the rest of my life." He said, "I plan to stay in this country for at least the next 2 years. The people in the group are normal, except they believe in Jesus and they try to commit their life to his teachings. They don't burn babies and eat them or do anything nasty like that. It was the fact that they got right down to the nitty gritty of the Bible, and they believe in Jesus and the Bible's teachings, and they don't miss anything out. They tell the full story, and that's why I love them so much and decided to join them." He added, though, that he's very homesick. "I miss my mom and my nan and my sister and a lot of other friends a lot, but it says in the Bible that you have to give everything up to work for God. I can't live my life for God if I live with my nan. I'm staying with the group, hopefully for the rest of my life." Well, after this interview, he was found. He had been missing or in hiding for a month, and he was found at this like campsite with two other members. They were like hiding. First, they were at the campsite, but then when people started asking questions, they left and they went like deep into the woods. But police ended up finding them. They arrested the couple that I told you about, Ronald and Susie, the ones who recruited and stuff. They arrested them, but then when Bobby then became a ward of the court, and he basically pled to the court to show leniency to Ronald and Susie and say like they didn't do anything bad to me, and they ended up helping because they got arrested before they found Bobby. And at first they weren't cooperating, but eventually they did give the police information that led to them finding Bobby at that campground. So because they cooperated in the end and Bobby asked for leniency, they got only like 6 months or something like that for the whole thing. And then Bobby was like back, and everything seemed fine, except it was soon revealed that while Bobby was gone, he was actually trying to recruit his 12-year-old best friend. Remember, he was 16. His best friend was this kid called John, who was 12. Apparently, he called John, and he also sent him a letter, and I'll read you what the letter said. "I'm not getting brainwashed. I hope we're still mates. You might think that I'm enjoying the attention, but to be honest, I really don't like it. I just want to get on with working for God. I'm in hiding right now and I can't tell you where, as the police might get this letter, but it has many trees and overall is a nice place. I'm getting a bit frustrated that I can't move places. If we do, the police might spot me. Keep this to yourself. Remember, the main reason why I'm doing this is because of Luke 14:33. I won't be leaving the country at least for the next couple of years, so I hope I can see you. I want to talk about Luke 14:33, but first I want to tell you about the phone call that he had with this kid John, who remember was 12, where he was basically telling him like, come join us. And then John said, I can't, I'm 12. I can't just leave and join like a cult. And that someone in the background said, quote, you can be any age. So I just think that's interesting that they're willing to take like a 12-year-old without their parents' consent when they've already like taken a 16-year-old clearly without their parents' consent. So let's talk about that Luke 14:33 thing, because that is a big part of what they teach, and people believe they have like manipulated what that actually means so that Dave can get people to do things such as like the kidney stuff that I'm going to talk about. The part of Luke 14:33 that is mentioned when Dave tells them that they have to just give everything up and everything like that is, quote, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. After Bobby was taken away in the woods, like by the police, he secretly did keep in contact with the Jesus Christians, but then eventually he left. But when he did, he was like emailing them. There was one moment where he decided to leave contact with them, and this is why and what he said in that email. So it says here that he said, the reason why I do not wish to join your group is because I think you are very against a number of people, and I do not want to make enemies. I also love my family, and when I got back, I realized how much some of them love me. That happened like in 2000. The next year, in 2001, the kidney cult is born. And it all started when Dave was watching a movie on the plane.
And they had a movie on there. I don't know how the airlines happened to get this thing called A Gift of Life. And it was about a boy who donated a kidney to his mother or his grandmother.
I was hoping we wouldn't match, and that would be the end of this nonsense.
After all this? You gotta do it!
And he was like, oh my God, I should do this. But he sent an email to his followers and he says, I'm thinking about donating my kidney. If you guys want to do it, ask me any questions, like, let's do it. And in fact, some of his followers donated their kidney before he donated his kidney. According to Dave, this whole idea of like donating kidneys was basically being living sacrifices. And he quoted Apostle Paul, who, when preaching to the Romans, he said to present their bodies as, quote, living sacrifices. It says on their website, they cite John the Baptist, who asked crowds seeking baptism to give proof of their repentance. One such proof would be for those who had two to give to those who had none. He was really good at like cherry picking certain things and being like, this means you have to give them your kidney. And this is when a whole bunch of shit goes down. So now they're like, okay, they're going to start donating kidneys, but there's a problem where they're at in Australia and also in the UK. It's illegal to donate to a stranger a live kidney when you don't know them, and like the whole thing is just like doesn't really make sense because usually it's like a family member and they're like hesitant. Part of the reason why it was illegal in those places was several things. First of all, they were worried that when someone pretended that they were doing it for altruistic reasons, just a stranger to a stranger, that it was actually not true. And it was part of the like illegal organ trade, and there was going to be money exchange, maybe some coercion involved. And so that was one thing they were worried about and why it was illegal. Additionally, there was the health factor, because if someone was willing to give a stranger a kidney, at times they realized that that person was not telling the truth about their health. And there was one example where like people in the United States died from stranger kidney donation because that person had rabies and didn't say anything. In the United States, though, it was more lax. You could do like stranger donations, whereas in Australia, you had to prove that you were friends or had some relationship. And the Jesus Christians, when they started doing this, like in Australia, they were lying. Like they were figuring out ways to Photoshop photos and meet people online and concoct fake relationships in order to do this donation.
A business card was developed. It just says that if you need a kidney transplant, I can donate a kidney to you for free. Contact me at my email address,
which is
kidneyforfree@yahoo.co.uk.
What are you, some kind of sick moron? Was a reply from someone.
But again, as you'll see with Dave McKay, he wanted attention. He didn't just do it for the sake of doing it. So there were several news stations and documentaries and things that were done about this that he was very happy to work with.
Their leader, Dave McKay, has emailed me to ask if I want an exclusive on a secret. He says it will grab the headlines.
Didn't they say that you can brainwash people within hours?
I wish I could. I mean, that'd be great.
Maybe you'd have more members.
Yeah.
Do you have any last minute doubts?
No doubts. Just you gotta do. I was just kind of feeling a bit depressed and feeling like almost like regretting like having given the kidney, thinking like why did I donate? Like I just have to be careful not to become hateful or bitter. So that's what I'm working on now.
And there's like montages of him talking about how like, thank you to the news station. That's here like literally creepily singing like this.
We've got Channel 7. We've got Channel 7 to be thankful for.
So people saw that and said, no, this isn't like, oh my God, they're so nice. Maybe some of these followers who are doing it believe that. But Dave, who gave them the idea and sort of allegedly pressures them into it, first of all, he hasn't given his kidney yet. He will when he got called out on it.
It occurs to me, Dave has scheduled the leak for mid-March, after Robin and Casey's operations, before he, Susan, and the other Jesus Christians will have time to give their kidneys. Now, if you were not trying to imply that we were up to some scheme to get out of giving a kidney, what were you trying to imply?
There was this documentary done called like Kidneys for Jesus. And that documentary, like the filmmaker, at first he was on Dave's side, but then as the documentary goes on, he like starts to hate Dave and is like, this guy's so manipulative.
I entered Dave's world a year ago, believing that the anti-cult groups were the crazy ones. But now I thought of Dave that way. Why? Because I really don't like him. I'd allowed myself to be influenced by Dave. Now I was out of it. I began to dislike him irrationally.
There's this part where he's basically telling him, like, you don't really have that many followers, because he doesn't. He had like, what, like 30 followers or something? And he seems kind of like, yeah, I know, like, damn, that sucks, because he's like, when you start, preaching and promoting, like, you should get a group, but like, I didn't get a group.
I just, assumed when we started out that, a movement's going to get going here. I mean, everybody else does that. They get movements,
It's like, yeah, probably because they have to give up everything, including their kidneys. Oh, and by the way, here it says also part of their liver, if you can. It seemed like some people thought it was good what they were doing. And I mean, I'd love to know you guys' opinion. Like, maybe it's not a bad thing. The people that were receiving it, like some of them were just like, just give me the goddamn kidney, because they're like dying, One of the like things that happened between this filmmaker and Dave where it wasn't good was when Dave basically told the filmmaker that he wanted to do this scheme where he would create a fake person and interact with like anti-cult institutes.
Yeah, there's this fictitious woman called Anita Foster who's been sending a few emails to various people in preparation for this, yeah.
Anita Foster is Dave. Dave, writing under the pseudonym Anita Foster, has been emailing anti-cult groups implying that Dave has been coercing his members into selling their body parts on the black market. Dave hopes the tabloids will go into a frenzy, and then I'll come along and make the tabloids look stupid.
And that's when the filmmaker was like, I was over here trying to give this guy just a voice and see what's really happening. And I feel like he's manipulating me and using me to twist the truth and create all these things. And so it was during the filming of this documentary that this filmmaker was actually also writing an article about the kidney cult called Blood Sacrifice. And during the filming, the article was published. So you see the article coming out and the fallout that happens from that article.
Every day for months, I'd wake up to find scathing emails from Dave. They began to chip away at my sanity.
It's 1:30 in the morning here in Australia. I've just received an urgent telephone call from the UK. The problem with Reinhardt is that although he's willing to donate, he's not very keen. I could push him into it. I have to make a decision, and there's a life depending upon it. Amongst other things, I was upset by the fact that you portrayed me as a manipulator, forcing or coercing Casey into doing something that he might later regret. And that's why we decided not to cooperate with you. But now after this phone call tonight, I've had to rethink. I'm prepared to go ahead with the documentary, but only on one condition, and that's that you use this video. And I'll let Christine's blood be on your head. Thank you.
He posted things in that article talking about how some of the members who donated their kidneys regretted it. He talked about the scheme. He talked about how Dave hadn't donated his kidney yet and how other members had, and made it look like basically David was using them and manipulating them all for his own personal gain. The article comes out, the documentary comes out, there's all this fallout from that. And then a year later, there's another scandal, this time in Kenya. This happened in 2005, but just as recently as last year, there was an awful, like over 400 people died in this massacre to do with another cult leader who the officials and government, other people in Kenya have linked to Dave McKay and the Jesus Christians. So that I'm getting ahead of myself with the timeline. I'm going to talk about that, but I just want you to know that now we're talking about Kenya in 2005. Keep in mind, some crazy shit's going to happen last year. Basically what it was remember that couple I told you about, Ronald or Roland and Susie, who were the recruiters? Okay, so the husband, he gets arrested in Kenya for essentially kidnapping. But this time it wasn't, well, there was a minor involved, but basically it was a woman. She was an adult journalist and the daughter of a very, very wealthy man in Kenya. And she had a 7-year-old son. And she was interested in the Jesus Christians, stayed with them for a little bit, and decided that she is going to forsake everything and go and be with them, with her 7-year-old son. So she takes these Jesus Christian members, a few of them, that guy and his wife, to meet her father, who was this wealthy guy over there. And the father immediately is like, no. He's like, this is a cult. You're not only are you going to join them, but you're going to take your 7-year-old son, my grandson, to go be with them. Absolutely not. If you're going to do it, fine, you're an adult, but you can't force the kid to do that. Leave the kid with me and you go do that. And then maybe when you come to your senses, we'll be here. But she's like, no, this is my son. This is what I want to do. They're great. There's nothing wrong with them. So she just did it. She basically disappeared, but willingly. She basically went into hiding with them. Well, the father, right, he's wealthy, he's influential. He wasn't having that. So what ended up happening was, while that guy, Roland, in Nairobi on the streets, handing out flyers and pamphlets and books, 4 Mercedes-Benz pull up, cops jump out, they arrest him, and they take him, they charge him with abduction, and the whole thing seems weird. The cops have Benzes, it's her father, he's got so much power. And they're like, we're going to charge you with abduction. They put some other charges on him. He's facing 7 years. It's this whole thing. And basically, he's like, give me my daughter and my grandson back and everything will be fine. Well, what ends up happening is the daughter, she speaks out. She testifies on behalf of Roland and the Jesus Christian. She's like, my father's doing this. He's using his power. I'm fine. I'm not kidnapped. I want to go with them. This is my son. There's nothing going on here. You can't do this. And essentially kind of he gets released and it seems okay, that's over and done with. But file that for later. That happened in Kenya in 2005. So they're like, all right, let's leave for now. And where do they go? They go to Los Angeles, California, where another insane shit happens, a whipping trial. This story to me was crazy. I went and I found the local news talking about it and my mind was blown.
Even the police show up.
Hello, allow me, please.
Because violent punishment is taking place inside.
What's important is that a statement has been made, that we feel very strongly about this.
Something that has these people running to get their loved one out, only to have the doors slammed in their faces.
They don't even know what a cult is. Nobody does.
So there was this teenager. He was 16 years old at the time, and his name was Joseph Johnson. His parents were both teachers in LA. The Compton Unified School District is where they were teaching. And this kid, Joseph, was straight A student, popular, star athlete, had all this like promise. He was going to USC and UCLA and Stanford to visit the college, like, because he's potentially going to go to these colleges. Like, it seemed to his parents and everything like this kid is going to go places, like he's our, golden child or what have you. Well, he ends up getting one of these books from them that they're like talking about in the street.
Read the book and it was just very, very powerful.
And there's like a website on the book, JesusChristians.com. This is like 2006. He goes on there and he's seeing like forums and chatting with people and talking. And then that escalates to where he's now like meeting up with people in the area who are Jesus Christians. And they're having these like secret meetings. And he likes what they have to say because he grew up in the church. Like, that's the key. All of the people that join, they grew up in religious homes, but just like traditional, more, I would say, mainstream Christian homes. So they were already open to that, but then this was like a different way. And so that sort of like pushes them over the edge. Once he turns 18, right before he's about to like start applying to these schools, he basically tells his parents, I'm not doing any of that. I'm leaving everything behind. I'm going to join the Jesus Christians and I'm going to like go on a mission for God. I'm going in the white van and I'm dumpster diving. I don't want to go to college. An incident occurred, a violent one. And this is what was going to result in the whipping trials. When Joseph went to his parents' home to tell them the news of like, I'm leaving with them, he had two male members with him. And this is what one of them said in this article. They arrived in Long Beach around 7 a.m. and it was tense from the moment of arrival, Cron Miller recalled. Cron Miller is one of the Jesus Christians. They said something like, how are you going to let these white people put you back in slavery and bondage? Sheila, that's Joseph's mom, when she saw Joseph that morning, says she remembers wondering what in the world has happened to this kid. He seemed like a zombie. He just kept saying, I have to do something for Jesus. So this is where everything escalates because Joseph's dad and his mom, they're having this heated conversation with the two Jesus Christians. And then Joseph's brother pulls up to the house and the father's like telling the brother, like, can you believe what's going on? This and this. And that's when one of the two Jesus Christians freaks out actually and starts running away. He like jumps a fence, runs. But then he said when he turned back around, he noticed the other Jesus Christian was now on the floor and Joseph's father and brother were kicking him. And so this crowd starts to get there, becomes this whole thing. That member who was running away, he comes back. The ambulance is called. He rides in the ambulance with that other Jesus Christian who's like unconscious, broken teeth, fractured spine, brain trauma. Like he was in the hospital for 3 days. It was like really bad.
I was attacked and punched unconscious.
So while that was happening, Joseph's brother was actually keeping him in his bedroom and like holding him down, not letting him leave. So they basically like forced Joseph to stay, beat up the guy. And then there was like assault charges that came against the father and the brother. And it was like kind of this problem. But the next day after this incident, Joseph actually called the Jesus Christians and was like, basically, I want to come back. Like he felt really bad. So they're like, okay, I mean, your family, like, but okay, like for Jesus. He ends up leaving and going with them. But then he comes back 3 days later and he was having a bit of a problem because the thing was, he was defending the Jesus Christians to his family. And then he was defending his family to the Jesus Christians, but they both were like having none of it. So he just couldn't make anyone happy. Seemed like he was pissing everyone off and he was just going through it. He was like stuck. But he came back like 3 days after he left, which was only 4 days after the incident. And he asked his mom, first of all, for $15,000 for the Jesus Christians. And she was like, no. And then he was like, okay, then I'm gone. And this time he left like for good. But then about 5 months after this incident, they're back in LA. Dave McKay has rented out a middle school auditorium in Los Angeles. He has called the local media, telling them that this like mock trial is about to take place. Before the trial, Joseph calls his parents and basically tells them, like, we're going to have this trial about that incident, the assault, and I need statements from you basically admitting you were wrong and to come and like testify at this trial. And his parents were like, no, we're not going to do that. So they're like, okay, we're going to have the trial anyway. So like the media come, they have this trial. Okay.
You're trying to humiliate them, and is that a godly thing to do?
They've humiliated themselves. Okay?
And it's like they go over what happened and they're like sentence, the family. They're like, the father did this, he gets like 25 lashings.
I hereby judge you as guilty and deserving 25 lashes.
But remember, the father isn't there. So like Dave McKay, I'll take the lashings for the father. Goes out there, his face is like stuffed into a pillow and he gets whipped. So wow, he's taking the whipping for this man who beat up one of us. And then it was like the mom is also guilty. Like she gets 5 lashings. And then Dave's wife, Cherry, I'll take the lashings. She gets whipped. Joseph takes a whipping for his brother.
Why are you doing this?
I think it's loving for me to take the punishment forward.
Well, Joseph's father and brother hear about it and they want to go there to see Joseph because they haven't seen Joseph. It's been like months. So they go to, but like they have people with them and they're coming in there and they're like calling for Joseph. Where's Joseph? We want to see Joseph.
I know about the Bible, Joe. They telling you a lie. They telling you a lie, Joe. It's poison to your kids. You better beware. Because these people out here are manipulating minds.
So the members, they run out the back. They're scared.
McKay says he's afraid of Joseph's family, and he calls the police.
We would like to get an escort out of here.
With officers escorting the Jesus Christians, Joseph's family and friends are kept back.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Manipulating kids' mom. You're not God. Hello, sir, officer. That's my son. And the Jesus Christians brainwash him, sir.
Joseph finally responds.
I don't know. You never seen my life. I don't know who you are.
And just like that, Joseph leaves with the Jesus Christians.
They run out, they go back in the white van and they drive off with Joseph. Of course, during this whole trial, they have t-shirts with their website, JesusChristians.com. Please like and subscribe. So they didn't have a YouTube channel yet, but they do now.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. The topic is cults and the anti-cult movement.
We usually ask people to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you think you could subscribe, share some food or a few cents?
Stay away from me, please.
All right.
Don't deceive people.
I'll see you.
Yeah?
After this happened in 2006, there was another thing that happened in like 2007 and 8 where there was another person who was, this one was a person called Ashland, Ash, aka from Australia, who also was going to donate his kidney. But the parents, they did not want him to do it because they were like, oh my God, he's in a cult. He wiped out the bank accounts. They end up going to the media. There's like a whole thing about it. Of course, Dave and his group participated in this like documentary.
We have an agenda, and our agenda is to try to get the public more aware of how easy it is.
I would say it's a cult. I would say it's a madness.
During the listening time, what we're trying to do is to empty our minds of any ideas that we have about anything, really.
It was coercing his members into donating kidneys. There's a risk of internal bleeding. There's the risk of a collapsed lung. There's a remote risk of death. I see it as a small thing.
I was aghast. I was living in a world of aghastness.
The parents succeeded in preventing their son Ash from donating the kidney because of like the documentary and everything. The hospital actually said like, yes, it's legal to donate a stranger altruistically a live kidney, but because you have all these cameras and stuff, we feel like it's not altruistic. It's for media and stuff. And so like in good consciousness, we can't do that. So they end up going to Cyprus and donating a kidney there. He did it anyway. But by this point, former members spoke out. And they were basically like, listen, this guy loves the attention. He's doing all this for attention. He has all these like missions and ideas in Kenya, in India, in whatever. If it doesn't get media attention, he doesn't do it. This kidney thing, it's getting attention. He's doing it. The minute you guys stop paying attention to the kidney thing, they're going to stop donating kidneys. Like, it's all for the attention. And so, in a way, the tension kind of dies down. Now it's 2010, and there's some drama in the group. Remember the couple I told you about, Roland and Susie, who've been there at this point over 20 years? They would recruit. Remember, they were a big part of this group cult. Well, they end up leaving. There's a whole drama. They're like, we got excommunicated. The other group side is saying, no, they left, they abandoned us. People involved said that there was, quote, tensions based on their parenting skills. So Dave was interfering too much with how they were raising their children. I'm not quite sure, but there's a split there. And then after that, it seemed like the group died down. They made an announcement saying they disbanded. There were other little offshoots, but you didn't really hear anything until 2016 when Dave McKay starts a YouTube channel. And this ends up propelling him to having way more followers than he ever had in real life. And he's not exactly telling them right now, like, hey, you have to like donate your kidney. But he's like, if you want to donate money, though, I'll take it. Like, subscribe, donate.
It's about dying right there where you are and possibly all alone.
Well, bye for now.
In 2019, there's this thing that happens with Kenya. Remember I told you about the massacre that happened in 2023? Okay, so this is the lead up to it. 2019, the whole COVID thing is happening. Remember they were talking about there's chips in the vaccine and like there's RFID chips and the mark of the beast, right? This is a big, big thing that he preaches and talks about on his YouTube channel. Is that like any type of chip or tracking or anything? It's the mark of the beast, sign of the end times. So in Kenya, there was this other leader of a church. His name was Paul Mackenzie.
Paul was really watching the videos of Dave and Sherry McKay.
God may call you to face a quick death in a few days.
Hallelujah.
The church was called the, what is it called? Good luck? What is it? Good day? Good times? Sorry, it's the Good News International Church. At the time in Kenya, there was something called a, quote, Huduma number, aka a Huduma number, which was basically this identification program card thing. Both Dave McKay and Paul Mackenzie, the leader of the church that had that massacre, were very much against this and were calling it like basically the mark of the beast. And these articles are referencing tweets that ended up getting deleted and articles that ended up getting removed that at the time Dave was basically posting under and saying, hey, this is messed up, like we support you. And then one of his own followers and members of Jesus Christian, they went and they gave a sermon at this guy's church in 2019.
So welcome, brother. Yeah. Okay.
You will have to choose to live by faith, which means you will have to forsake everything. We do have a YouTube channel if people are interested in visiting it. But Brother Mackenzie is persecuted for taking a stand. We also feel that the Huduma card is getting us closer to the mark of the beast. Are you prepared to die for Jesus?
He's one of your right-hand men.
I got a lot of right hands then, okay?
Also, this guy, Paul Mackenzie, his teachings have some similarities to Dave McKay's teachings. For example, he believes that you need to forsake everything and your family and everything, but instead of getting in the white van, he wants you to come in the forest. And then instead of dumpster diving and all that stuff and not working, he tells them you need to fast. You need to fast, you need to fast. And obviously it's end times. They both are preaching that. And this was like, you know, right after COVID, and it was like really feeling end timesy. And then he also did mock trials if someone didn't want to fast or didn't want to follow the thing, and they shamed them, like the whipping trials and all this stuff. And so there were links literally between them, like communications and crossover, but then there were similarities too. When in 2023, this horrendous, awful, awful massacre happened.
Authorities are currently exhuming bodies. More than 400 victims, claiming that the end times had come. Nearly 200 children,
telling his followers to fast to death,
while others were strangled.
We are talking of over 429 lifeless bodies.
It was just awful. And then if you didn't starve or you tried to eat, they would like hit you and you were by yourself, already isolated from everyone in the forest. Like, where were you going to go to? And like hundreds of people died. There was this connection that was then brought up again with Dave McCain, the Jesus Christians, and then he started getting questioned.
Why did you go to Kenya last year, Dave? Your trip was just after they kept pulling the bodies out of the Shakahola forest, wasn't it?
Don't try to make some connection, okay?
Just after your church becomes involved with Paul Mackenzie. He just happens to relocate to a remote location. You suggest, and there's video evidence to show it, that Kenyans might have to starve themselves to death.
Excuse me? The starving to death, you quoted us as saying, Dave is saying
why
that...
don't you address the question?
Why don't you be polite to my wife?
Why don't you address the
Why
question?
don't you just shut up and be polite and let my wife speak? Stop behaving the way you're behaving, Liam. Grow up.
We've never said you have to starve yourselves to death.
That's right.
We said you may starve to death.
That is disgraceful.
Gosh.
We've never said that.
That's okay. It's just
No.
Hey,
You don't want to answer the question, do you? You've got a bad temper there, Dave.
Obviously, Dave McCain denies it. He hasn't been officially charged, but the government of Kenya actually said that like any foreigner who is going to promote Jesus Christians is to be expelled.
The view to expel from the Republic of Kenya any foreign person connected to one Dave and Sherry McKay.
He still does interviews with media. There was a recent thing he did in 2024.
Oh, good morning. And I'm Dave.
Dave, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah,
and my wife, Cherry.
Cherry.
That's Bob and Tina's bedroom. They've got a big queen-size mattress in there anyway.
That's their bedroom.
That's their bedroom, yeah. That's where they live.
They live in a tent.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kenyan teenagers who were adopted, bringing them back to Australia, where the only life they have known is inside the cult, being homeschooled since the age of 6.
And he has still people following him, including, remember Joseph that I told you? Well, Joseph ended up marrying another girl who joined, and then her mom sued Dave for defamation. He was found guilty for defamation in that video where he basically was like, she believes in Lucifer and all this and all that.
There is a mother in Australia whose daughter married one of our members, a black member. This mother is a Luciferian, a Satanist, if you like.
This recent documentary tried to like bring them together and have them talk. It didn't really go so well.
Hi. Thanks for coming. Oh, you in? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, nice to see you in person. Yeah. Okay.
Dave's idea of Renee and Alicia having a meeting on their own involves Alicia's husband, Joseph, listening in on every word.
So yeah, I would love to know what you guys think. Is it a cult? Is it a group? Is the kidney donation thing good? Is it not? Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again to Upside for supporting my channel. Don't forget to click the link in the description, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.